Welcome back. Well, today I am joined by Dr. Desai and Dr. Tiongson, who are here on behalf of Providence Mission Hospital. And today we are going to be talking about atrial fibrillation. Well, welcome both of you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lisa.
And we've talked to a variety of doctors regarding AFib, if you will. And there's just I think there's a lot of concern, and there's also a lot of confusion out there about exactly what it is. So let's talk a little bit about what AFib is and why we need to be concerned about it. And whoever would like to start.
Would you like to take that one?
Sure. Atrial fibrillation is a very common rhythm issue that happens more so as we age. It's a very irregular, chaotic rhythm that can go as fast as 600 beats per minute, and it activates the top chambers of the heart, the two atria, in a very irregular, chaotic fashion. And the problem with atrial fibrillation is it can make people feel poorly, or sometimes people even feel a faster heartbeat, irregular heartbeat. But more often, a lot of people will just feel lack of energy. And some people can attribute that to aging when it's really a rhythm issue that's arisen. Our biggest concern about AFib is that it actually can promote a stroke. As the atria fibrillates, the chamber simply wiggles to the point where the blood can hang around, and blood that hangs around can form a clot. And that could be the source of the stroke.
And that's where I think some of the confusion comes in, right? Because you're going to have certain symptoms that are contributing to this. However, they might think it's something else.
Correct. Yes. Or some patients that really just don't have symptoms. Right. That's even more scary.
Exactly. And what exactly causes this particular incident?
Well, with AFib, age is probably one of the number one causes. So 1 in 4 people over the age of 40 at some point will get AFib, which is a pretty staggering number. We like to use different analogies for AFib, just in medicine in general. It's helpful to do that when you're talking with patients. And so AFib is like electrical arthritis of the heart. So as Dr. Tiongson said, like if you have a bad knee, you sort of accommodate to it. And so you don't walk as far. You don't really think about the knee, you just don't walk as far. And so with AFib, it's an aging heart. And so you get scar tissue in the electrical system. And then that creates these little short circuits that can promote AFib. So that's probably one of the number one risk factors: obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, sleep apnea, thyroid disease. All of these different things contribute to the development of AFib. And AFib is almost like a body that's out of balance, that the heart is an engine that should be running smoothly. And when things are out of balance in the body, whether it's weight or whether it's diabetes or what have you, then the heart gets thrown off. So age is one of the number one risk factors for AFib.
So then when you do have a patient that has AFib, then is there medication treatments, or what are some things that you can do to help them?
Jake.
Yeah, there's thankfully, with science and progress, lots of options now, or tools in the toolbox, so to speak. Traditionally, first of all, we protect people from the most serious outcome of stroke with a blood thinner. So that's part of the discussion is thin the blood so that a clot can't form, and then obviously work on the rhythm itself, either to mitigate symptoms. The AFib oftentimes will make the heart rate go a lot faster, and patients have symptoms from that. So there are medications to slow down the heart rate. Okay. But beyond that, we actually have medications to help suppress the rhythm altogether. We call these antiarrhythmic drugs to try to just prevent or suppress rather the AFib itself. If those would fail, then procedures then become more of an attractive option, whereby we actually garner even higher success rates at controlling AFib by doing things like ablation.
Right. Okay. So now let me ask you: are you both? You're obviously both in the same area. However, what are the differences of your practices? So, Dr. Tiongson, what do you specialize in?
Well, thankfully we all three of us here at our group specialize in the full spectrum of heart rhythm care. Okay. Whether it's from top or bottom chambers, whether it's ablation or device-based therapy, whether it's implanting devices like the Watchman, right? We all do all of it. So ultimately, it's all full service. We don't really have a particular niche, any one of us, that way.
Okay. And same with you, Dr. Desai?
Yeah, I think like Jay said, I mean, the nice thing is we're one of the few groups where you have 3 electrophysiologists that do the whole spectrum of care with regards to heart rhythm, and we're cardiologists as well.
Right.
And so we have our partner, Dr. Lin Hung, and then Dr. Tiongson and myself, and we're all academically trained. And so we kind of come to patient care from the standpoint of the latest science and technology, and also incorporating the humanistic aspect. What's nice about it is that we're able to offer this sort of 24/7 care and patients access to our practice. In many practices, you may have a variety of different cardiologists and an electrophysiologist in the group, which is also a great model. In our particular practice, we have our cardiologists, our interventional cardiologists, our heart failure specialists, and then we have so-called electricians of the heart, which are the 3 of us. So we're the 3 electricians. And I would say that we practice very similarly, offering that whole spectrum of care from rhythm disorders like atrial fibrillation to defibrillators and pacemakers to a variety of other.
So at what point would a patient see you? So they've gone to their primary, and then does the primary usually find something, or is it a routine visit to see you as well?
So it's kind of a variety. You know, patients are being referred to us from all different types of locations: urgent care, primary care, ER physicians, as well as sort of friends of the family. So palpitations probably is our most common sort of baseline symptom that patients are being sent for. At the same time, we'll have cardiologists that are managing AFib for years on their own, and they realize at some point they need help, right? So we take care of things from the ground level up, as well as patients who have already been diagnosed with formal arrhythmias.
Okay. Now you did mention some of the commonalities that people will have when they, that they have in common that get AFib. What are some ways to prevent getting AFib?
Yeah, I think that's the key question, Lisa. I mean, well, obviously, talking about the treatments and the monitoring, but it's really about the prevention, just like everything else in medicine. And it's a wellness lifestyle. I would argue the research that's coming out about obesity and the link between obesity and AFib is significant, to the point that people who have ablation procedures, for example, or cardioversions, these different treatments, they do better and have a lower recurrence rate when the weight is managed, when the diabetes is managed. So I don't really think about this disease as independent of the body. And so one of the things that's common, and of course, in the US and across the world, obesity is a major challenge, processed foods, diabetes is a major challenge. So the common thing is all of us share some of these types of exposure. So if you look at coronary disease, if you look at, we talked about age, sleep apnea is a big under-recognized contributor to AFib. There's an estimate that 50% of people with AFib, this comes from the Heart Rhythm Society, have sleep apnea, have undiagnosed sleep apnea. That's relevant because you can treat the AFib with drugs and ablation and all sorts of modalities. If you don't treat the triggers and the risk factors, the AFib almost certainly will come back at some point. That's an important message for the people in your community. Is people often talk to each other and say, well, I was treated with a pacemaker and I was treated with an ablation, and my procedure didn't work and mine did work, and that type of thing. And one of the things that we're trying to get the word about, and we appreciate today, is that there are so many options for AFib care that you can go online and search for AFib specialists, heart rhythm specialists. The Heart Rhythm Society is a good website. There's a couple of others, stopafib.org. But I think the most important thing is just realizing that, it's really about wellness and a body out of balance. We've seen patients who have tons of AFib, and then when they lose the weight, it all settles down. So that's really the way to look at this condition. And that's why our discussion today really applies for all of us.
Now, sleep apnea is something that, people have struggled with forever. And of course, the only solutions that they really had were these masks and the things that the breathing apparatuses, which everybody hates. But then now it seems like there's more technology out there to help people with sleep apnea. So hopefully that will help those who may have AFib, and it'll help settle it down as well, correct?
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about these, newer devices, but you're right. They're becoming, more and more, prevalent. So I guess we'll just have to see how it affects not just sleep apnea, but also our AFib, population too.
And
Yeah, I
then,
think what
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things about sleep apnea in our medical group, we have it's multi-specialty. So we actually have pulmonologists, sleep specialists, and a sleep lab in the medical group, which is really nice because then if we see a patient with AFib, immediately we can do a sleep apnea evaluation at home. There's a home test, makes it really easy for people. But kind of like what we're talking about AFib, there's a lot of misperception about sleep apnea in terms of CPAP and how it's terrible and you can't tolerate it and it doesn't work. There's a lot of misperception. The reality is that in the model in our country, oftentimes people will get the sleep study, they'll meet with the technician and they'll be immediately given a device, a machine. Right. And really what needs to happen is the patient needs to meet with the sleep specialist, with the physician, to find out there are dental appliances that can be made. There are companies that make an implantable device that stimulates your tongue to move your tongue out of the way. So there are a lot of options. I always encourage my patients to, if they're unhappy with their CPAP or they sort of gave up on it and their AFib keeps coming back, again, it comes back to you got to treat it, got to treat the sleep apnea. I'll say, let's get an opinion. Let's get an opinion from a sleep specialist. So just like you're talking to heart rhythm specialists today, sleep apnea is really a big one that, I can't underscore enough.
Well, I like the fact that you have everything there. So if you find something, you can definitely refer them to have a secondary opinion about sleep apnea. So that's great. Well, thank you both so much for the information. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back after this.